whenever you fight someone like Gennady Jacobs, if you can come away with a unanimous decision, I thought it was good. He dropped Danny, but we're not used to seeing decisions with Gennady, so you never know how the decision's going to go. The judges had it very close. I saw it as a close fight. I thought that Gennady won the fight, but it was close, and I don't think there was any losers in this fight. I think Danny definitely raised, even though he lost the fight, he definitely raised his profile and raised his marketability and his credibility, because these are the two best fighters that have fought each other.
Tom, BoxingVoice.com. One thing I noticed in the fight this evening was Gennady's body language. Usually he's very aggressive physically. You can also kind of see those daggers in his eyes. Maybe look a little hesitant. You kind of see that.
When you're in, again, you can't overlook or underestimate what Danny did in the ring tonight. He's got tremendous hand speed. He's got big punching power, and he's got great footwork. And so, Gennady can't do some of the things he's used to doing in the past. And the fact that he was able to drop him and be the aggressor for the majority of the fight, you still got to take our hat off to Danny, not only what he did in the ring, but throughout the whole promotion. We have a lot of respect for him and his entire team.
Tom, tomorrow morning when we read the newspapers and we read the reactions, let's say there is an overwhelming sentiment that Jacobs may have won this fight. At some point, I know there's no rematch clause, and I know there may be a fight against BJ Saunders coming up in June, but is a rematch, especially the sentiment maybe more towards Danny, something that you may consider going forward in the future?
Well, I don't think, just the reaction I've heard, this isn't a controversial decision like the Ward Kovalev fight, or not pointing out that particular fight, but other controversial fights. I think the Chocolatito decision was probably more controversial. I personally thought Chocolatito won the fight, but you got to give Rungvisai a lot of credit for coming here. Chocolatito was definitely the favorite, the guy from Thailand who's not that well known over here came over and really showed a lot of heart. At the same time as the champion, I thought, even though Chocolatito got dropped, I thought he came back and won most of the later rounds. But that's what happens when it goes to the scorecards. I think in the main event, in the Gennady fight, I don't think it was that controversial. I mean, if you're scoring a lot of the rounds, for Danny, you could always see it either way. But I haven't heard a lot of controversy for that score.
You admire this boxing. A performance like this, will this open up more opportunities?
Hopefully people think he's human and will actually get in the ring with them. So that's what we, all we can do and all Gennady can do is fight the guys that actually agree to get in the ring with him. Now, maybe they'll think he's not as dangerous as people thought in the past, and then we can make the higher profile fights.
Tom, was this at all the first time in a long time you were nervous coming into the later rounds, given that Jacobs was coming on?
Seeing what happened with Chocolatito in that decision, that made me nervous going into the decision for this fight. So, anytime it goes to the judges' scorecards, you never know what's going to come out. I felt with the knockdown, Gennady was ahead with him being the aggressor. But again, Danny's a local guy from New York. We're fighting here in New York. That's one of the things that Gennady's always done. He's willing to fight guys in their backyard, just like he did Kell Brook in the UK. So, but you never know quite what you're going to get when a decision comes out. And again, there's no losers tonight because both guys, the way they fought, such a great and competitive fight. You got to take our hat off to Danny as well.
Tom, do you think anything into Danny skipping the weigh-in today? Do you think he had a substantial size advantage at all, or do you think that's different?
Well, Danny's a physically bigger guy, and I would say it was you could clearly say he was the heavier guy as well, but. Look, you gotta, Gennady knew what he was signing up for. He was following the rules with the second day weigh-in with the IBF. We saw what happened with Lemieux when Lemieux chose not to do the second day weigh-in, and and was able to knock out Curtis Stevens. So certainly, if you look at it from a strategic standpoint, I guess you can look at it as an advantage if you don't place a focus on the titles and just getting an advantage for the fight. But Gennady's sparred with a lot of bigger guys in the camp, so that really shouldn't affect him. But he was. I would say Danny was a heavier guy tonight.
What did Gennady tell you in the back about the fight and about Jacob?
Just has respect for Danny. Has respect for Danny as a person and as a champion. Inside the ring and outside the ring. So I think there's a mutual respect there between the two guys that recognize both of their talents.
Do you feel it's fair for doing middleweight or middleweight to come into the ring like rehydrated, like 15 pounds over a middleweight?
I mean, all we can do is go by the rules. Gennady was following the rules of the IBF, which he weighed under 170 this morning.
Yeah, 169.4.
0.6, yeah. So, and we don't know what Danny weighed because he didn't weigh. So, again, that's a lot of speculation. But I would say it was. It's an advantage to put on the weight, especially with the early weigh-in that the commission had requested. But I don't think that really shifted it one way or the other. I think it definitely affected the Curtis Stevens fight. I think Lemieux was much bigger in that fight, and it's hard to speculate exactly what effect it has when the guys actually get in the ring on fight night.
So is it a waiting game, Tom, at this point to see what happens with Canelo and Chavez?
Well, yeah, clearly if Canelo loses, then there's no Canelo fight in September.
What do you think that?
Well, Kazakhstan, the unique thing about Kazakhstan this year is it's the World Expo. So that window is the summer of this year. If it happens, it would most likely be the summer.
Tom, when you have a close call like this, does it make it a little bit more urgent for you to want to get the Canelo fight done and not take chances?
We wanted to do the Canelo fight last year.
Yeah, I know.
So we'll do it as soon as possible. He's going to be in for a tough fight. I think that's going to be 12 grueling rounds with Chavez. Canelo is going to be the favorite in that fight, but you never know how he's going to come out. Right. So people can plan for September, and if Canelo re-injures himself or has a tough fight or loses, then any plans that I make for September are out the window.
Well, let's assume for a moment he comes through it okay. I mean, at that point, do you have to intensify your talks with Golden Boy? Like, let's get this thing done before somebody gets beat?
I have to say the date has always been, once Canelo vacated the title, the date has always been September. So Golden Boy hasn't wavered from that, and I don't see why that shouldn't happen. Whether he fights in Kazakhstan or what happens, the priority, I think, there's two priorities for him, is to unify the division and to get the biggest fight in boxing. So if we can make one of those two happen or both of those happen this year, it would be a tremendous year. But we saw how tough this fight is, and we have to see how he comes through.
Tom,
on the initial talks you've had with Frank and Billy Jones, on your gut feeling, where would their preference be for the fight to be? Presumably the UK.
Sure, I mean their preference would be the UK, but I'll have to sit down with Frank this week and see if there's how realistic it is to try to put a fight together.
Don't you have to wait until May 7th, until the Canelo fight's over, to be able to strike any kind of deal? I mean, because that's
Canelo?
the fight you really want, right? Well, even for the junior.
I mean, we could always agree on terms subject to him winning, just like we could have done it before this fight, subject to Gennady winning. So it's always got those clauses. I know Canelo has a rematch provision where you could, do a rematch if he wanted to. So, there's a lot of things up in the air, and we just have to see how clear it becomes in the future.
Tom, what was this experience like doing business without
Oh, I've everything's been fine with Al. This is the second time we did a fight with Al, and we got to give Al and Gennady Jacobs a lot of credit. They did a tremendous job during the promotion. Danny held up his side of promoting the fight. Gennady usually carries the promotion, but Danny did a great job marketing the fight. And he saw this was a big opportunity for him, not only to challenge for the titles, but it was a big opportunity to increase his visibility, his marketability, not only here in the U.S. but internationally for sure.
Can you really wait around till May before getting a plan in place?
Sorry, say
Can you
again?
really wait around for Canelo in May before getting a plan in place for the summer? There's the risk that nothing.
Oh, no, I think he meant as far as the Canelo fight. If Gennady was to fight in the summertime, we would be working on that right away. So there's not that much time before the summertime to do a fight.
Do you feel as well that he said that, you know, it's a dream fight for Saunders fight because it represents opportunity to get
Not necessarily Saunders, but his dream is to unify. So whoever has a title, Andy Lee held it briefly, and then Billy Joe won it and defended it one time. So we'll have to see if there's a way to try to make that fight.
Gennady said it may be tough to get into Kazakhstan with the World Expo going on because there's just so many things in play. Does that?
Yeah,
do you know about that? I mean,
there's absolutely really nothing set at all. So now we got to go see, now that we have this step behind us, if it's even a possibility to go there, and then if it is, if it makes sense to fight Billy Joe, if we can do something with him, or one of the other guys. So we'll have to see how that works out. And if that doesn't work out, then the UK is always an option. The UK in the summertime, we see look, Vladimir's going to fight Joshua April 29th, and that's a tremendous fight. So if we can't do the Canelo fight, or if Canelo loses, then a summer fight becomes more interesting. Gilberto Ramirez is fighting April 22nd. If he wins, he could become a great fight for Gennady in the fall. So there's a lot of options, and hopefully, like I said, that now that Gennady's knockout streak has been broken, hopefully it'll be easier to try to put a fight together with reasonable money. We'll sit down this week and see whether it's Kazakhstan or whether it's Canelo. We'll have to see what direction Gennady wants to go into in his next fight.
I think that today's fighting show the results gives an intensive weight of agreement with the Billy Joe Saunders.
Well, we couldn't make the Saunders fight last year. Hopefully we can make it this year. Same thing with Canelo. So I think a fight like this just opens up the doors for Gennady, and we'll see. We'll see if guys are more likely to sign a contract now than just talk about the fight.
So is the priority still the Canelo fight and then a potential Saunders fight? Is it
priority
still
is
like that?
the biggest fight that someone will actually sign a contract for.
But
That's
I
the
guess
priority.
preferably, though?
It's hard to speculate. A lot of guys, like with Chris Eubanks, we were negotiating for a month, and then it looked like it was going to happen, and then he didn't sign the contract. So, I can speculate if someone's going to agree until they actually sign the contract. It's can't actually plan on it happening.
Why is it taking so long for Triple G and Canelo to be made? Who's to blame?
To get what?
Why is it taking so long for Triple G and Canelo to be made? I mean, who's to blame for stalling?
Well, it was ordered last year by the WBC, and it didn't happen. So since Canelo vacated the title, it was Golden Boy's always said September. So there's no reason for me to believe if the fight happens that it wouldn't happen in September.
So what's more likely to happen than it, do you feel, is the Canelo fight or the Saunders fight? Because they're saying with it happening in June, this fight in Kazakhstan, on their side they're saying it's not enough time to promote the fight for September.
Well, I think there's plenty of time for that, but we'll see. We'll see. It doesn't matter how much time there is to promote a fight if we don't have a signed contract. So, then there's not much we can do.
Is there a possibility to organize a fighting event in Kazakhstan?
With which one? Canelo?
I mean the next fight.
Next fight? We'll have to see. I know the Expo would like him to fight there. It just depends on if he can actually how he feels, if he wants to fight again in June, and then we'll go from there.